Putting on my top hat, tying up my white tie, brushing up my tail.
Welcome to Hatcast,
the podcast about hats.
I'm Charles Berman.
And I'm Carl Bernhardson.
And we're here to talk about hats. Hats are a lovely subject.
They are.
And they're the subject we've chosen for our podcast.
This joke might be getting old if you're listening to more than one episode in a row, but hats are great.
What was the joke?
Well, not the joke, the bit, where we talk about this being the podcast about hats. And then think hats, this is what the podcast is about.
Many programs have an introductory spiel that they give where they say the same thing at the beginning.
No, that's true. Maybe we can be aware of the fact that we say the same thing at the beginning. And now you know it's not pre-recorded, right? We weren't lazy. We say it every time.
That's right. This week's program, which I'm sure you can't tell just from the sonic qualities of it.
Right, because you could be listening to this at any point.
Yes, maybe you're on your morning commute on your way to work.
But don't let that fool you.
It's very late. It's not really very late.
Well, it's late for me.
It's comparatively late. We normally record around
5 o'clock, right after work.
It's about 10 o'clock, which is 5 hours later than that.
Right.
And
time has passed.
Yes. We're doing an episode which I think could thematically we should have done it just after we did the episode on the Wide Awake hat.
It would have been clever. We didn't think of it at the time. So we want you to think about how clever it would be to listen to this episode right after the Wide Awake, because it's about well, I guess the Wide Awake is not the opposite of this hat. But the words,
that would be shoes.
But the name of the hat is the opposite of
wide awake. Wide awake,
right.
Yes.
One would not wear this hat when one is wide awake.
Well, it's not the comatose hat.
No.
I guess that would be a hospital pillow.
But it is a hat that you wear when you are sleepy or sleeping.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the sleeping cap.
The cap for sleeping.
But before we speak about it, we should talk about the hats that we wore today.
A very good idea. In fact, today I wore my red knit cap, or a
watch cap. Or
I think this may have been what I wore last week as well, because it continues to be wintry, despite the fact that it is now... Oh, we're going to wait the clock out.
No, I don't think we should. This will prove to our audience that we are, in fact, recording at 10 o'clock.
All right, so you hear the ringing of the clock. The clock is striking 10. Yes, so I wore my red watch cap, and...
How appropriate for the clock striking 10.
Yes. I wear this at night a lot when I sleep.
Oh, how incredibly appropriate for this episode.
Because I'm cheap and I don't like to have the heat on at night, so I put it down to 55.
Yes. I wore a hat which is left over on the table over there. It is a green corduroy hat, not up to the level of the corduroy pit helmet, but it is also green corduroy. It's one of those caps with the button on it and the panels, but a flat cap shape.
Right. Like half Greek fisherman, half flat cap.
Oh, almost.
Sort of in between,
it's
right?
The paneled on the top. It's got a good amount of wear. It's starting to get a little bit old, but I've got a lot of good use out of that.
I've definitely seen you in this hat frequently.
Yeah. I bought it in a hat store in St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
And I got a brown version of it too there, but I like the green one better, but I might have to switch to my light brown one because that's getting a little bit old, but not too old to wear yet, I don't think.
No,
or else I wouldn't have
it's
worn
corduroy, so corduroy does wear.
Yeah.
It doesn't last forever. That's the problem with it. As comfortable and sonically pleasing as corduroy is, it does end.
It's a good spring weight because it's not woolly like some of those other hats shaped like that are.
Right, but it's not without warmth properties. Either,
right, yeah. Well, anyway, let's get to correspondence.
Right. Oh, we have some.
It's not written correspondence.
Oh.
I sent it to the email so I remember it, but it was verbal correspondence. And this was from my friend Pete, who listened to the program and responded to me in real life about it.
Oh, good job, Pete. That's what we want.
Hi, Pete, if you're listening to this episode. And first of all, he was one of the people I mentioned as owning a fez.
Oh.
And he was a slight correction. He said he didn't buy the fez just to wear it to Rocky Horror. He just bought it because he thought fezzes were neat, and he also happened to wear it to Rocky Horror.
Okay,
and
even better.
Yeah, and he said that he had heard the story that the fez was invented so that people could wear it while praying and move their arms up and down in genuflection and supplication without having to remove the hat from their heads.
Oh, I had never heard that.
I had never heard that either.
I don't know if that's accurate.
I don't either.
I think it's
interesting
not.
to look into. It's certainly an interesting story, but I hadn't heard that either.
What's interesting about the Fez continues to have so many origin stories to it. That
Yes.
Maybe we'll need to do an episode, The Fez Revisited.
We can always do follow-up episodes. Yeah, they're the 10,000 and 10,000 times 10,000 are the dimensions that we can examine of hats. But today's hat, let's get back to it, the sleeping cap.
The sleeping cap.
And I think, as you mentioned, there's something very elemental about it.
You put it on your head so it's not cold when you're asleep.
Yes.
It doesn't need to keep the sun out because the sun is gone.
Right.
And really, that's all it has to do. It just has to keep you warm.
As a functional matter, yes. My father would do what you do with a hat like that while he slept.
Mm-hmm.
When I was living at home and I would see him do that, or sometimes he likes to sleep sitting up, so he would do it with a baseball hat sometimes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, from October until almost May, I always sleep with a knit cap on.
Mm-hmm. I don't tend to, but I especially thinking about doing this episode, I think I might like to get one because I have sometimes been known to pull the covers over my head if my head is getting cold and then it becomes hard to breathe.
Right. That would make it difficult to breathe if your face was covered by the sheets.
But while I'm sleeping, I'm not always thinking that clearly about it.
Right. You're just thinking, my head is cold and I don't want it to be.
So I think that might be a good idea to get. But the sleeping cap or nightcap, of course,
has taken another meaning.
Has more than one meaning, yes. Nightcap is also a drink that you have before bed.
Right. Named probably after the hat.
Yes, I would think, although it would be interesting to look that up.
And in the interest of interest, we're looking it up.
Yeah. The online etymology dictionary says, in the alcoholic sense, it is attested from 1818. American English sense of final event in a sporting contest, especially in the second game of a baseball doubleheader, is from 1939. And it tells us very helpfully that nightcap is from the late 14th century, covering for the head, worn in bed, and essentially it informs us it is from the words night and the words cap.
I could never have figured that out on my own. Thank you, etymology.com.
Well, yeah.
Or etymology online, to be specific.
Yes.
Well, the most interesting thing in there is that nightcap has had the alcoholic association since 1818.
That's a while now. That's 200 years this year.
I guess it's easy to come up with those it's the drink you have when you're wearing your nightcap, so it's the nightcap drink.
Yes.
Right?
I don't think anyone gets confused and pours the alcohol on their head thinking it will keep them warm. Unless it's a hot toddy, but then it could scald you. Yeah. I wouldn't recommend that. So it can be properly said that when you wear that hat to sleep, it is functioning as a nightcap.
Correct.
However, when one refers to a nightcap, one is also talking about a particular kind of hat.
Right. You imagine a hat that's kind of cone-shaped, probably has a little bit of a tassel on it.
Yes.
And it just sort of fits snugly onto the head, no brim. And that's sort of what I imagine. Although I bet the nightcap has changed a lot through time, especially since I wear a nightcap in that sense, but not one that is cone-shaped and tassel-y and sort of funny-looking. We're looking right now, actually, at a picture of Ebenezer Scrooge, an illustration from A Christmas Carol, and it has exactly what I would imagine when I think of nightcap.
It's a sort of conical hat, if you imagine a dunce cap made of floppy cloth.
Right.
And it has a tassel at the end of it, as you would imagine on a tam o' shanter, but in this case on a nightcap. And that is still made. You can find them for purchase.
Now, you don't really see them at a department store in the pajama section, though.
Yeah, I think they're more of a specialty item, but they still are around. We're looking at some Google images of them now, and there's the fellow with a plaid one, and it looks like IrishTweeds.com is selling this one.
Now, I guess I'm not sure why the cone shape is at all practical.
Well, I wasn't either. Wikipedia, which is sometimes a little bit cursory. So yeah, Irish Tweeds has one for €15, and it looks pretty nice. That's not too bad, really, for a pretty luxurious nightcap.
No.
Wikipedia says women's nightcaps usually consisted of a long piece of cloth wrapped around the head. Men's nightcaps were traditionally pointed with a long top, usually accompanied by a small ball of some sort, which was used similar to a scarf. It kept the neck warm while not being so long that it could wrap around and become a strangulation hazard.
Oh, okay. So it was a wrap, essentially.
Yeah.
So you would take it and put it around your neck to keep that warm.
Right.
Okay. Whereas women would wrap something kind of like a...
And there's an image for that. It looks more bonnet-like. Yeah.
Yes.
But both would help to warm the neck.
Right.
So that is in fact functional. While they can be a little bit silly looking,
right,
they are very functional in that fashion.
I had never thought of it that way. I was perplexed, but I've learned a little bit more than I thought I would in talking about nightcaps.
Speaking of Dickens, since we were just looking at an illustration from A Christmas Carol, in his novel Nicholas Nickleby, he has a passage where it says, with which preface, that's following a previous passage, as you can imagine, Mrs. Nickleby took her nightcap from between the leaves of a very large prayer book where it had been folded up small and proceeded to tie it on, talking away in her usual discursive manner all the time. People may say what they like, observed Mrs. Nickleby, but there's a great deal of comfort in a nightcap, as I'm sure you would confess, Nicholas, my dear, if you would only have strings to yours, and wear it like a Christian, instead of sticking it upon the very top of your head like a blue-coat boy. You needn't think it an unmanly or quizzical thing to be particular about your nightcap, for I've often heard your poor dear papa and the Reverend Mr. What's-his-name, who used to read prayers in that old church with the curious little steeple that the weathercock was blown off the night week before you were born. I've often heard them say that the young men at college are uncommonly particular about their nightcaps, and that the Oxford nightcaps are quite celebrated for their strength and goodness. So much so indeed that the young men never dream of going to bed without 'em, and I believe it's admitted on all hands that they know what's good and don't coddle themselves.
So is this one of the earlier literary references to a nightcap?
I think it's... Well, I don't think it's one of the earlier. They go back to the 1300s.
Right.
But it's a notable one and a great author. I think that there's an association of these with the 19th century.
Yes. You sort of think of your late 18th, early 19th century gentleman putting his nightcap on before going to bed. Something that comes to mind is The Night Before Christmas, right? You sort of imagine that the narrator is wearing a nightcap. I think he references wearing a nightcap at some point.
Yes.
Sort of there's a definite 19th century literary air to the nightcap.
Yes.
Probably perpetuated by the illustrations that accompanied these works.
Probably so, yeah. I think part of that would be that central heating was not as common at that time.
That's a substantial factor, I think. Yeah. If you were asleep, you weren't putting things to burn on the fire.
Right.
So you needed to stay warm.
Right. And it was just generally more common for people to wear their warm clothes indoors.
Right. It wasn't so much a sign of cheapness as it might be now to keep the house very cold at night.
Right. But it still does get cold, so people still do put
the sun is
things
gone.
on their head.
Right.
I think another contributing factor to the scarcity of the nightcap in our modern age has to do with the fact that the watch cap has become more common for non-sailors.
Right. I'm an example of that.
I
right?
have one myself. Yeah. You wouldn't want to wear a top hat on your head to sleep.
Right. That wouldn't work. Any brimmed hat would become exceedingly irritating if you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. I think you mentioned your father wears a baseball cap to sleep sometimes, but that really only works if you're sitting up,
right,
or on your back.
He prefers to sleep sitting up, but many people do not.
No, I can't. I can't fall asleep sitting up.
I can, but it's not the most popular way to sleep.
Right. Is this a poem?
Yes, Robert Browning, notable poet, wrote a long poem called Red Cotton Nightcap Country, or Turf and Towers.
I'm not familiar with it at all.
It's apparently one of his lesser known and less popular poems.
I can't imagine why.
And there are a few hats that have been eulogized by a great poet in long poetic form.
I would not have guessed the nightcap was one of them, but here it is.
Yeah, and when it does happen, it doesn't necessarily tend to bring renown onto the poet for doing that. But he does write about the nightcap. He says, "White cotton nightcap country? Excellent. For they do all, dear women, young and old, upon the heads of them bear notably this badge of soul and body in repose. Nor its fine thimble fits the acorn top, keeps woolly ward above that oval brown, its placid feature more than muffler makes a safeguard, circumvents intelligence in what shall evermore be named and famed, if happy nomenclature might avail, white cotton nightcap country."
Well, that is a poem.
It certainly is. It's really very felicitously phrased. It might, by some, be considered a bit ludicrous for its elevated language in service of a nightcap.
Yes, I don't think that anybody would be considered too critical for saying that.
I couldn't imagine, that they could. He goes on quite a bit.
It's a long poem. Cap is referenced, if you look at it, 169 times in the course of this poem.
Yes, it's quite a tribute. "You would be gracious to my ignorance. What other nightcap than the normal one, old honest guardian of man's head and hair, in its elastic yet continuous, soft, no less persisting, circumambient grip, night's notice. Life is respited from day. Its form and fashion vary, suiting so each seasonable want of youth and age. In infancy the rosy naked ball of brain, and that faint golden fluff it bears are smothered from disaster, nurses know by what foam fabric. But when youth succeeds, the sterling value of the article discards adornment. Cap is cap henceforth. Unearthed by the futile row on row, manhood strains hard a sturdy stocking stuff, or well-deserving head and ears. The cone is tassel-tipped, commendably takes pride, announcing workday done and wages pouched, and liberty obtained to sleep, nay, snore."
And I think we should end it there. To sleep, nay, snore.
You wouldn't have thought "to sleep perchance to dream" could be improved upon.
To sleep, nay, snore. No, this is I'm very happy to have been made aware of this poem's existence. Although I can't say it's very good.
It does not seem to be Browning's greatest achievement in the bits that we've looked at here.
No. But how wonderful that we were able to find it, to talk about, and to quote to our dear listeners.
And I encourage you, audience, if you can find other examples of
the nightcap in literature.
Lofty hat poetry.
Yes. Not just the nightcap, any hat. Send it to us. And where would you send it to if you wanted to send it to us?
Hatcast@yandex.com.
Hatcast@yandex.com.
I've been trying to put on our internet outlets some literary hat-related quotations.
I've seen these. It's been fun to read at work when I'm procrastinating.
Yeah, so I think if you find any others from poetry, I don't know if you'll find anything quite so hat-fixated as Red Cotton Nightcap Country.
I think we have to put the whole thing up.
We might very well have to, yes.
Piece by piece, though. But yes, it all has to be there.
It might help you to sleep, nay, snore. So the nightcap, I think, I don't own one yet, but I'm thinking I might like to acquire.
Maybe I need to get one.
One of them.
My neck does get so cold at night. I wish that my hat was conical and very lengthy so that I could wrap it around my neck, but without it being a
Strangulation hazard, yes. Wikipedia had another interesting historical note here. It said that in the Tyburn and Newgate days of British judicial hanging history, the hood used to hide the prisoner's final agonies was actually a nightcap supplied by the prisoner themselves, if they could afford it. When they had finished their prayers, the hangman simply pulled it down over their face.
Oh, that's kind of grim.
It is,
That's
yes.
sort of the eternal nightcap.
Yes. And they cite History of British Judicial Hanging.
Which is a surprisingly detailed website.
Yes.
Yeah, wow, that's grim.
But it does speak to the ubiquity of the nightcap.
Right, you had one, so you might as well bring it to your hanging.
Right.
Oy. Well, that's
It's a grim end. I suppose it's an apposite to the eternal sleep.
I guess it does actually give us some insight though to the sort of size and weight of a nightcap, right? That it's probably stretchy enough that you can pull it down over your head.
Just big enough,
and big enough. Maybe you would roll the bottom up a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess that would give you sort of a Santa Claus look.
Right. I think
Is Santa Claus wearing a nightcap?
I think it's a winter cap that's modeled on the look of a nightcap. Yeah.
Because you don't really wear that kind of hat in the winter. And maybe that sort of the fur trim around it. I don't know. Now we're getting on a Santa Claus tangent.
Maybe we'll do an
Christmas
episode
time
on the
we'll have
Santa
to,
Claus hat. Yes.
Yeah, we won't get too much into it. But it is a nightcap that he's wearing. It's got the ball-shaped
Right.
tassel.
It's just not the very long version. It's an abbreviated version of a nightcap, I think.
Right.
But Santa Claus is wearing pajama-like clothes, I think.
That is true.
And he does come at night, so I think that
might
maybe have to do with that. We won't comment in case for some of our audience doesn't want to have their opinions swayed. We won't comment on any of the existential questions of Santa Claus.
No. He isn't real.
And now, normally we talk sometimes about what people might think of you if you wore this hat walking down the street.
Don't do it.
Maybe we'll actually name this segment "What People Would Think of You If You Wear This Hat Walking Down the Street."
What a sleepy man. Have you just woken up? Was he so late
Yes.
for work that he forgot to remove his nightcap
Right.
and remember what century it was?
This is a hat that is not intended for public wearing.
Right. You wear it in your house at night when you are unconscious.
Yes. And for that purpose, if you are seen in it, if someone has occasion to be in your house at night and sees you in it.
Right. I assume perhaps you're married, right?
Perhaps you are, yes.
This person who you are married to likely sees you
at night, yes.
Right. And would you would spend time chatting in your
sleeping clothes.
Sleeping clothes in your twin beds, which are appropriately spaced from each other, wearing your nightcaps.
This is the version for the audience for whom we're revealing nothing of our views on the ontology of Santa Claus. Well, let's say it's 2:00 in the morning and there's a storm and someone is stranded outside and needs shelter for a few hours while the storm passes.
And all you have is your nightcap?
They bang at the door, and you groggily step out of bed, and you have a candle on your candle holder, and you open the door. You may still be wearing your nightcap. This might really happen. You probably have electric lights, but maybe the storm has knocked the lights out. This could happen.
It could.
So what will they think of you? They will think probably that you are a little bit old-fashioned looking.
Right, but you understand the value of warmth and saving money through energy conservation.
It's old-fashioned, but recognizable in what it is. It's not ludicrously old-fashioned.
No. Plenty of people put something on their head when they go to sleep.
It is very practical, and I think even although old-fashioned, more practical than the modern equivalents, which don't provide neck warmth.
That is true. Yeah, if I tried to pull what I wear on my head when I go to sleep over my neck, I would cover my mouth and face in a way that would make me deeply uncomfortable. I could wear, this is something, balaclava as nightwear.
You could. I would worry about it getting twisted around and stop me from breathing. But
if you wear a balaclava to sleep, let us know.
Yeah, I don't care that much about what's in my obituary, but I don't necessarily want it to say died from suffocation because he slept in a balaclava.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a pretty embarrassing tombstone.
Yeah. But I think the only downside to this is, of course, if it's warm while you're sleeping, you don't want to wear this in a hot August muggy night when you're very warm. Of course, it's pointless.
You're probably not wearing it during the summer or in the tropics. It's definitely a wintry sort of hat.
Yeah, it'll be more useful for bald people than hairy people.
True, although your head still gets cold.
Can still get cold. It's just, I think the lack of hair would make it even colder.
Yep.
The only obstruction, I think, is if members of your family think you look silly.
Right. They might say, "Hello, family member. You look goofy in that hat," and then you would say, "Well, you look cold in your not hat." Right? I think.
Yeah, I think some of that could be dispelled by saying, "Look, there's practical value to this."
Yeah, I assume if you're someone who's wearing a nightcap, you're kind of a goofy dad anyway, and you don't care what your family members are saying.
Probably so. Yeah,
right. So, yeah,
that's probably the modern demographic of nightcap wearers. Yeah. Or just people who want a warm head and neck while they're sleeping.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting one now. Although
me too.
Now I'm thinking, wow, this would be very practical.
I have no children, but I think I can still be suffered to wear it.
Yeah, if you made a Venn, I also, I have no children, but if you made a Venn diagram of like goofy dads and Carl, there'd be a lot of overlapping.
I think that the difference would be the dads have children.
Right. Yeah.
By definition. Yeah. You're a goofy non-father. That's the only... I don't mean that insultingly.
No. It's true. Yeah, I mean, it's the truth.
Well, so let's rate the nightcap.
Okay. Practicality. I'll give it. I mean, it gets like a 9.5.
I can't argue with that.
If you're wearing it when you're supposed to wear it at night,
right,
in the cold, it's going to do what it needs to do.
Everything is a matter of context, but
yeah.
As long as this is in context, I can't fault it. Well, I agreed with your 9.5, so I can just write 9.5 times 2.
Right, which would be
19. Yeah.
Right.
Now, style value. This is difficult for me.
Yeah, I guess it could be stylish in the context that you wear it, right?
I'm not going to give it full marks.
Right.
Because it's hard to argue against the fact that it is goofy and anachronistic looking.
Right. And there are... Yeah, it is goofy and anachronistic.
But it has a certain flair within that goofiness and anachronism.
True. And if you were in a household with other people, right? If you don't live alone, other people are going to see you wear your nightcap.
Right. If you live alone, wear a lobster on your head. It doesn't matter.
Well, don't do that. You'll probably get, like, pinched ears.
Wear a lobster-shaped hat.
Right.
Yeah, no one is looking at your head.
It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah,
there's a style to fun.
You
but
can
don't
get
wear it.
You can get nice soft tweed ones.
Yeah, they do have a style to them. Okay.
Yeah,
I was ready to give it like a 2 for style because it is so funny, and you shouldn't wear it out of your house. But I'm gonna go as high as 3.5.
I'm gonna give it a 5.
Okay, but now we've got to do some real math.
Yeah, this is of course assuming you do not wear it anywhere but bed.
Right, then it becomes a 0. Then you've now taken that 5 or 3.5 on style and taken it to 0. Don't wear it outside your house. People will think that you're pretending to be like Sleepy Bob, the mattress salesman, right? It's not. Come on down to Sleepy Bob's Mattress Warehouse and buy some mattresses, which you will sleep on.
Yes, you will. That's the only thing that's reasonable. Yeah, or in a play and or on your lunch break from a rehearsal. Or
I'm going down to the library to read to some children the night before Christmas, and I'm wearing my blue and white striped nightcap and my robe.
Right.
That's fine. That's because, okay.
Semiotically, the only signal given off by this is sleep.
19th century
and sleep. Yes, yeah. So if you're wearing this anywhere but to sleep, if you're wearing it to sleep, you're giving off the signal of perhaps some old-fashionedness.
Right, which is fine. I mean, this is Hatcast.
Liver in a cold house.
Right.
Person whose head gets cold.
Yeah. Bald.
Yes, possibly. Although, yeah. If you're wearing this anywhere but bed, you are sending the signal. I want to show you that I'm going to sleep.
Right. I'm very tired. I can imagine this in a scenario where you're at a party and it's very boring, and you come downstairs after having gone up to get something, and you're wearing your sleeping cap.
Right.
You're giving the signal. Okay, everybody, I'm bored with what's going on here.
I think now, if you're the host of the party, that sends the signal: go away.
Go home. I want to go to bed. I'm wearing my sleeping cap. You're probably wearing your robe at this point.
Yes.
And some
if
slippers.
You are a guest, you are sending the signal: I thought this was a sleepover.
Where's the air mattress?
And you have taken great care to dress exactly appropriately for a sleepover.
For the whole duration of the party.
Yes.
You didn't just bring your away bag.
Yeah. You thought it was a sleepover, and the time to sleep is now. If you wear this to a business meeting, you are sending very insulting signals about the boringness of what's going on.
Unless you work for Sleepy Bob's Mattress.
Right, in which case you are just in costume waiting for the end of the meeting. So the sleeping cap gets, or nightcap gets a 5.5 overall.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
It seems like a lot of things get a 5.5 because
it does feel that way.
In a 10-point scale with 4 numbers, that's going to happen a lot.
Well, yeah.
We may not mathematically have picked the best system for rating hats, but we talk you through it so you understand where we're coming
from. The thinking.
Yeah.
No one is just skipping the episodes and going right to the database of number ratings.
And if you are, let us know, and we'll try to talk you out of that. You should listen to it. We make some jokes. It's fun.
It's not that long. Yeah. Well, that's our discourse on these nightcap.
And speaking of which, it's night, and I'm going to go to bed.
And as you should, audience, if it's that correct time and place.
If you're driving to work, listening to this on your commute, don't go to bed. You'll die.
Yes, you drive your car to where your bed is, then you could go to it.
Yes.
Don't go to sleep, I think. Yeah.
Right.
Well, this has been Hatcast. If you want to send us any comments or questions or other communiques, you can email hatcast@yandex.com, hatcast@yandex.com.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All my boys and all my beats like to wear nightcaps when they go to sleep. At the end of the day, when it's time for bed, I put a special kind of hat on top of my head. Legitimate, double it, with a ball on top. It's like 1900 when my eyelids drop. Wool dyed like a barber pole, red and white. I'm gonna sleep like an old-timey dude tonight. Snoring and whistling, human cartoon. Log getting sawed in a thought balloon. So, all my boys and
Nightcaps, night comfort of the human race. Their usage may be growing obsolete. Still, in Maine, the institution stays. And though yourself may possibly have lived, and probably will die undignified, the never night-capped more experienced folk laugh you back answer, what should nightcap be, save nightcap pure and simple?